Little Legends Podcast is a Prediction Esports production. Support us by subscribing to the Prediction Esports Podcast channel on your favorite podcast provider. Hey guys, welcome back to Little Legends Podcast. I am your host, Blevins, and joining me as always is Boop. What's up, buddy?
How's it going? But we're not alone today.
We are not alone. We are joined by the one and only freelancer, by the way, Doha.
That's right.
LFT.
LFT.
I'm the esports mercenary, the esports Ronin, if you will. That's right.
Absolutely.
Samurai without a master right now. I've become my own master.
The independence runs strong with this one.
Esports consultant.
I mean, the job's.
you.
I mean, it's
I can
on
tell
a
you all about
shirt.
it.
It's on. It's
Yeah.
on a shirt, so it's got to be. You know, that's the thing.
True.
I make
true.
it pretty obvious.
For you TFT folks who have been living under an esports rock, you may recognize Doha from the Fandom Legends cast that happened. That was the one, right? That you did?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was a ton of fun. Yeah, me and Frodan
Yes.
last month. Yeah.
Okay. I did
That was
remember that
great.
correctly.
Man, there were some really good players in that tournament. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those games where it's kind of like Rocket League to me, where like I play and I think I'm good, and then I see people and like
You
they're
watch
doing
Grand
all this-
Vice and you're like,
Watch
"Oh,
Grand
he's
Vice
over
or
here."
Crowan, and I'm
Exactly.
just
It's
like,
it's like, am I stupid? Right? Is my brain just not functioning at their
How
level?
does
And I
he
think they have
seem
some
to
ideas.
know what he's gonna roll each time. It's
I know everything is
he's
so
so good.
intentional, and I don't get it.
yeah.
I haven't seen him play in a couple weeks, but he's my favorite player right now because he plays the game, I think, the way it is supposed to be played,
Mhm.
in that you play in a very measured reactionary style where
Mhm.
you're constantly adjusting both your own plan based on like what you're seeing and then what you're seeing your opponents do. So he's great. I could watch that guy all day.
Yeah, Grand Vice, definitely a top player. It's crazy, and we'll be talking more about strategy and whatnot in just a second. So we're going to first do just a touch of housekeeping, then we're going to give you guys, again, for those of you who aren't super familiar with Doha, we'll do a quick little rundown. Doha will give a little bit of background, then we're going to talk some TFT, and then we're going to talk, we'll talk some TFT in general, and then we're going to talk about the new stuff, the PBE and 6 Woodland. We may be seeing a lot of Woodland units on the board very shortly. But before we get into that again, guys, of course, we are a Prediction Esports podcast, PREDICTION Esports. Make sure you're following us on that channel on iTunes and Spotify. Leave a review on wherever you're listening. That always does help. And, of course, we do have game nights on Friday. You can go to discord.me/Little Legends Podcast and jump and join and play in the game nights. Everyone is welcome, no matter how bad you are, because I'm there, so you know that we're letting anyone in. And it is also going to be streamed at twitch.tv/GiantSlayerTV if you want to catch the VODs or if you just want to watch along and hear all of the antics that is there. And last bit of housekeeping is we actually released last week on game night, we released our brand new t-shirts, our Ready for Battle meme t-shirts. So if you want to get in on the inside joke, the Ready for Battle from game night, we've got shirts for those over at Designed by Humans. I will have the link in the description. Okay, got through that quickly without getting too derailed. So we'll start the show like we always do and talk about our week in TFT, maybe some notable games. Doha, we'll start with you as the guest. Anything fun or exciting happen for you in TFT?
I finally got time to play 10.1. I hadn't had much time to do it yet, but I wanted to spam a bunch of games before I came on the show. So I played a bunch yesterday, played a bunch today. The new lunar stuff is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had my biggest win ever today using the now extremely good in the meta Sivir Azir Blade Master shenanigans, Blade Master Summoner shenanigans. I won a game with 61 health remaining, which I think is the most I've ever had in a game, winning a game. So that was my notable game probably. But I didn't even get the Blade of the Ruined King on Azir either, so it was interesting. But
Don't even need it.
There you go. That's me. Haven't gotten to play as much as I wanted to, but I'm still in there. I'm still in there winning games. It's okay. Trying to fight my way out of plat right now.
What's it like to win? I don't think I've won a game on this patch yet.
You got to play.
It was rare. It was my first one on the patch, but I've only played the patch for 2 days. So
okay.
I have an excuse.
I've had very few wins, and almost all of them have had at least 6 light.
Yeah, light's okay right now.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like Nobles from back in the day, where it's just like such a roller coaster of emotion, right? They're really good, and then they're really bad, and then they were okay, and then they were good again, and then they're really bad. So
it's so Yorick dependent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yorick is kind of
always has been, but
yeah. Yorick kind of feels like the Gnar from set 1, where it's like, you just put. I mean, we had it on one of our earlier episodes. Just put Gnar in forehead. Like it doesn't matter what you're running. Just
I think Annie kind of falls into that category.
Yeah.
You can get into Annie. If you're running, it's like Tibbers is always going to be good. So.
Mm-hmm. Tibbers is a little too tanky for my liking. I would like to see him a little bit more delicate. But thanks for asking. My week in TFT is.
Of
course. Boop.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to remind you that you are one of the hosts of this show, so you can.
Thanks for asking.
You're not a guest on this show. Boop, our longest running guest, has been here for 23 episodes. Oh, sorry, only 22. Kenobi did fill in.
Right. Oh, that's right. I was, I'm almost Cal Ripken. But no, it was. I don't know why I wanted to jump in here
baseball
because
fanatics out there.
I know, right? It sucked. So I started.
All right.
I started in Silver 1 at the beginning of the week. So there's been like a lot of stuff going down, and like I haven't gotten to play like more than like 2 or 3 games in a row for a while. But then finally started grinding, and I climbed, and then I was at 98 LP, and then I lost about 240 of it.
Oh boy.
So I don't know why I do this. I don't know if you do this too, but like when I'm tilting, like I just like I think maybe everyone does do this, but when I'm losing, I like just will spend all my money no matter what. In my head, I'll be like, okay, I need to save money. But the last game I played, I probably wasn't over 20 gold like the whole time.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And then I'm like, I'm so upset. Why am I losing? And then I'll say in my head, oh, it's because I'm poor. And then the very next game, I'll do the exact same thing. So we'll see how that goes.
Set like what I did is I would like set like rounds that I would allow myself to roll down or to level, and I just wasn't allowed to do it. Aside from that, I was like, all right, right after Krugs, I'm gonna go to this level. Then I'm gonna like do this at this level. I'm not gonna spend anything at all except for stuff that just appears on the board right off on this. And like I just set like barriers for myself, and that kind of helped me sort of get a better sense of the economy when I was playing like in set 1.
Yeah, and it's so funny because in set 1, I was plat almost diamond, and then this time around set 2 has just been like hard to wrap my head around. Just
set 2 has been way more swingy. There's been like big swings in the meta in set 2 with the balance changes. A lot more than set 1, I think.
Yeah,
there's no Yordles this time, so you can't like cheat your way into a win with 6
Yordles
anymore.
I hate Yordles.
Hey, Hextech was worse than Yordles, though.
That is true.
Nothing is worse than Hextech.
I like how the devs are always like, we adjusted by getting rid of Hextech. That's like we did good, guys.
That was that was the greatest adjustment. Adjust it right out of the game, please. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, that kind of transitions into. We're just gonna jump around. You know what? Throw the notes in the garbage. Sure. We're jumping around. That brings up a point that we kind of talked to Mort about, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on Doa as well. Obviously, you've casted set 2 and are familiar with set 1. In set 2, it feels a lot less. Positioning itself feels a lot less important than it did in set 1, where it's like in set 1 you're okay, I need a position around Hextech, and they have they've got a Sejuani all to Cho'Gath all. They need to spread out. I need to do this, and the board was smaller, which kind of made it more impactful. I mean, I guess just personally from your play style, like how do you feel about that? How do you feel about how that?
I guess maybe. I mean, when you get to the late game, it's still just as important. And with the way Zephyr works, it's like even more important now. Like there have been games that I've won where it's like I won only because I had Zephyr in the right place at the right time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think even outside of Zephyr, positioning is still really important in like the mid to the late game. But I think in the early game, it's not quite as important. You can make fairly simple adjustments, you know, where it's like, oh, this guy's playing assassins, I should toss a tank back by my carries and make sure there's someone there to, you know, annoy them and hopefully not let my carries just blow up right away. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if I'd agree completely with that, but I think maybe in the early game positioning is a little bit easier, like you said, because the board is bigger, so you can just
Mm-hmm.
things just spread out more naturally. And there's less. I think there's less. Well, I don't know if I want to say that either. I was gonna say I think there's less devastating AOE in the game, but then again, there is Amumu and Nami and
Malphite
a
and
bunch of other stuff.
yeah.
Malphite, yeah. So never mind. The AOE is still there. I think the board's just a bit bigger. I think late game it still matters just as much. Mid to late game still
Mm-hmm.
matters just as much. Early game you can play it a little bit more casually, I guess.
Yeah, so when we had more on basically they like one of like the intentional design choices for set 2 was to make like because I think we have AoE but none of the AoE really does like a ton of damage like it did last time. Like remember when a Cho'Gath ult a rupture would just like destroy you if you had void
Mm-hmm.
bonus
Sure.
and you know Rabadons and stuff. So they actually tried to move away from Sejuani ults and the old Leona ult, like those AoE stuff, because I think if I'm thinking of the AoE, most of them are on 4 and 5 cost units in set 2, right?
I mean, technically, Kiana is like not AOE, but like a multi-person stun on a
Yeah.
three.
So
Scion, Azir,
Scion, yeah.
not
would you
Azir,
No, not
like to
Azir.
see
not
more?
Azir. Who am I thinking of? Aatrox. I knew it started with an A. Yeah,
What
so there's some AOE in there.
would you
Yeah.
rather have like more of like the fantasies, what Mort said, of like those big sedults, or kind of go towards more towards set 2 where it's more for CC, less for damage? Or where would you like to kind of like see that in the game? Because I think that's a balance that they're still having a hard time trying to pick up.
I think it'd be cool if you could have both, but then it's difficult to do that without comps being created that have both, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if I had to pick one, I would pick the less big things of instant damage and more like smaller CCs. Because I like the game when it's more tactical and the positioning, you know, does matter more, and you
Mhm.
really have to like min max where everybody is to the utmost to like win a game. I think that's like when TFT is at its most fun. Like I enjoy TF the most when it's like me and two or like one other person left, and I'm like
Mm-hmm.
checking all the boards and moving things around and trying to like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
mess with each other. Like that's my favorite part of TFT. So
Yeah.
uh, the more of that gets emphasized, I think the better. And yeah, so I'd have to go with
Yeah,
that.
I kind of miss like moving around for Blitzcrank in set
Yep.
one. Like because like that was like what you're exactly saying, though, is like when you hit final two, and there's a Blitzcrank on the other side, you're like literally moving that same unit across the whole board just in
Yep.
case, right?
Well,
For that
what I like
Blitzcrank.
to do, I like to pick up a Zephyr early actually in a lot of my games because
Mm-hmm.
I just look at, even if there's like seven other people left, you know, I look at the boards, and if there's one champ in particular that I'm worried about, I'll put it to counter that just in case I hit that board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't, positioning doesn't really matter too much anyway for that in that case. But if I do, then you know that's a round that I'll have a better chance of winning where I may have lost otherwise. So I love like early Zephyrs for that reason, to try to
Mm-hmm.
like mess with people because they aren't thinking about it that earlier. So you can cheese your way out of some early
Lev
wins
is
if
a
you get the
fan of the
Nocturne right and
Zephyr.
the Sivir. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a great
Yeah.
item.
It's like a poor man's force of nature. It's like I'm getting I'm plus one
Yeah,
unit
kind of.
on them for however was it 5 seconds I think now.
Yeah, you do that to the Sivir or the
Oh yeah.
Nocturne or one of their, you know, assassins or something like that. In
Mm-hmm.
some cases, it's really good.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments, one of the moments that really like made me fall in love with TFT was the first time I was in a 1v1 right at the end, and I was like losing very slightly. Like I had 40 health and they had like 10 or something. So like I was losing like 10 health around to them. So I was like slowly gonna lose, and then on the like I was down to 10 and they were down to, so it was down to the whoever won next one, and like I just threw in a random level 1 blitzcrank right at the end. Like rolled
Yeah,
down
that'll do it.
40 gold to find one blitzcrank, threw it in right at the last second, and just completely ranched them.
It
It's
feels
like,
great when you do that.
yeah.
I love that. That's like the best part of TFT, when you can like, and you can like straight up outplay the other person, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those moments are few and far between now, as I'm just
Yes.
putting in as many light units as I can and hoping that my Lucian just gets infinity attack speed.
I ran mostly. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was no, don't worry about it, man, because I think in terms of what I think has been really intriguing based on like how you're talking about it. Number one, you obviously love like the game and the genre because I've been seeing a lot of just out of battler stuff on your Twitter in general. So like now that you're kind of like in this, playing TFT, playing Battlegrounds, right? Like something that you mentioned pre-show was, there's a player Grant Vice who's been very successful in a lot of tournaments in the past that this is how you play. Are you trying to play like Grand Vice? Have you gotten there yet? Like, what is that style? And like,
are you top 5 on the ladder yet, Noah?
I'm in plat right now, so clearly I am not playing like Grand Vice, but I would like to. I mean, the funny thing is like when I play TFT, especially Battlegrounds a little bit, but TFT mostly, I get a similar feeling to when I was playing StarCraft 2 back in the day, where like it's just there's so much to think about and there's so many little things you can do that can have a big impact in how you play. You don't have to have 300 APM obviously to play TFT, but you do have to be pretty quick in certain rounds in certain situations. So studying a player, that's way better than me and then just trying to emulate that. Like I like having players that seem so far out of reach in skill to sort of try to emulate in a strategic sense. So yeah, it's great. Like I really do like get that same StarCraft 2 vibe when I play TFT.
Now you don't.
It feels better because all I need is top 4 instead of.
Yes, that is one of the most endearing things about TFT because it's like in Hearthstone, it's like you can play a 30-minute match and then you lose and it sucks. But at TFT, like you can play and play and play, and like you get a 4th, and it's like, okay, that kind of feels like a win at least.
It's like a participation.
It's like, well, I went up,
Yeah,
it's something.
Didn't go down. Now you mentioned you don't have to have 300 APM, which is true, but you do need to have at least like 50 APM because if you see me try to roll down,
Bleb is the slowest hyper roller I have.
I'm really bad at it too, honestly. Like I am terrible.
I roll down as fast as I can, and I'm down. I'm still have like 36 gold.
I just psych myself out. I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I've got like my 50. Which one do I need again? I'm like, I don't know which one I need. Roll, and I'm like, oh crap, I should have taken that one. And I practiced it. I practiced hyper rolling where like every single game, like a couple months ago, I just would hyper roll every game to get used to it. And I barely play that way anymore, but it's nice to have that tool in your toolkit if it's like, hey, this is a game where I'm going to need to hyper roll, so now I have some experience with that.
Yeah,
it's good to practice everything. That's another way where I think it's like StarCraft 2, where it's like you really want to practice everything, and there is just like in an RTS, there's an early game, a mid game, and a late game, right? You need to have your build kind of like planned out the whole time. So I do see a lot of similarities there, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah, that's definitely it really is like that, and I kind of ruined my play style like a few months ago when hyper rolling was it was all the rage. Yeah, there was egg roll and
it does make you dumber.
It made me a lot dumber. And
but Doa pressing that
every game makes
is
you dumber.
The best part of TFT.
I love hyper rolling.
Gambling, right?
It's so good. You get to do the most fun thing.
You can do it. I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's good. It's fine to have a drink once in a while, but if you drink to excess, you will be losing brain cells. And I think hyper rolling is the same thing. It's fun to hyper roll once in a while, but if you do it to excess, you will lose brain cells.
What an apt metaphor. That was so. That's it. End of conversation.
You don't want to binge hyper roll.
There, you heard it. You heard it, folks.
For days.
That's a shirt if I've ever heard of one.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be some sort of play on a hangover, but I'll probably tweet it out tomorrow when I think of it. It's hearing you bring up the comparison to StarCraft 2 really kind of makes me think of StarCraft 2 and StarCraft Brood War obviously are some iconic esports, and TFT and esports is obviously something that we're very passionate about, and Boop and I have casted. You obviously have casted as well, TFT, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on where you see TFT as an esport, how you feel it is now, and where the sort of the competitive community is on that.
I think I don't think TFT or any of the auto battlers are ever going to be games that fill arenas per se. Like you're not going to have like 50,000 people screaming for TFT. I don't think.
Right.
I think, but I do think it definitely falls into like the category of a really great esport and something that is fun to just sit down and think about and be sort of cerebral about. And
Mhm.
in that sense, it fits in really nicely with like chess or something like that, right?
Mhm.
You're not, I mean, nobody would ever disrespect the game of chess because it's awesome, but you will never see 100,000 people in an arena watching chess,
Right.
right? It just doesn't have those big hype moments that you want to have in a
Mhm.
big like arena sport, right? So I'm not trying to trash talk TFT when I say it's not like ever going to be a big venue selling out esport,
Mhm.
because it doesn't need to be. I don't feel like it's really meant to be that, you know. But I do think it is one of the best at the type of game it is, which is a game that's great to like sit on the couch with your friends and watch and think about and be like, oh, he should have done that, he should have done that, you
Mhm.
know. And there are moments of excitement, right? There are little bits of variance here and there, but that add to it that make it fun to watch. But yeah, I think it's just a great, strategy esport.
Yeah, so how does that affect your like because as a caster you're kind of the voice of the game during those big moments and making them entertaining. So in a game like TFT, you come from the world of Overwatch, you've cast League of Legends, you've done a lot of other stuff, you've also cast a lot of other card games.
StarCraft too.
Yeah, StarCraft. And so when you come into TFT, what is something that is just that you like casting about it, and what are some of the challenges? You did bring up some of the challenges of it being an esport. Does that come across in how you cast it as well?
It's yeah, it's super fun. It's sorry, someone's at my door right now. Can I run
Yeah, go
away?
for it.
Yes.
Go
This is
for it.
so unprofessional. I'm so
No,
sorry, guys.
it's okay. This is a perfect
All right.
time to jump to a break while Doa catches. Hey guys, you hear us talk about all these fun things that we're doing every week, the game nights, the now giveaways, all this awesome stuff. It all happens on the Discord. Go to discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. Join the community today. You're not going to regret it. Guys, if you are liking the show, please make sure you leave a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us there. And you can subscribe to us and check us live on Twitch at twitch.tv/the Blevins. Of course, the home of all of our content is at discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the break, because we sure did. I guess. Yes, it was as long as you took listening to the break. That's how long we were on break. But I don't even remember where we were. So we're
We're
just gonna.
talking about
Oh,
some
okay.
casting,
You do
I
remember?
think.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
Casting.
Yeah. So basically, just to reiterate what we were talking about before, TFT, is not defined, right? Mort said
Right.
last week that everything that they're doing now is because the success of this game was the double expectation, is what they said,
Hmm.
right? So everything
Cool.
seems really like reactionary. So building esports or building, auto battlers as a scene is brand new, and Riot's going to be in the front of that, and people who cast, I think, are going to be part of that equation as well. So for you, Doa, to be part of like a new genre like this is really, really cool, and to be on Fandom Legends, and you're going to be on Twitch Rivals, I'm sure. uh you know
Hope so.
doing regularly. Yeah, me too. It's great to hear you on there. What's it like in your role of a caster in terms of portraying the game in a way that's going to be awesome for audiences to hear, but also, taking into consideration all the challenges that you mentioned earlier about this becoming an esport? Like, what's the role for you in helping the community kind of grow?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's kind of similar to a game like Hearthstone or a lot of those other. You are evaluating what players are doing, talking about possibilities, talking about potential, mistakes, but more so trying to like get in the minds of the people that are playing the game and sort of being like, I think he did this because of this reason, and this is why this is good. Maybe this is what this, this is something they should be thinking about. But it's fun because it's a little bit slower pace. Like after doing Overwatch for a few years, it's nice to kind of like slow things down again and be like,
I
all
know.
right, I have time to actually like think again, because I guess I've made a name for myself as a play-by-play caster, right? Which is a lot of yelling, a lot of calling the action and stuff like that. But I was an analyst in StarCraft too, and I did Hearthstone as a. I mean, you have to be an analyst to do things like Hearthstone and TFT. You have to be able to look at the game on a deeper level and be good at the game, I think, to talk about it on that level. So it's nice to kind of get to flex those muscles again, right? Because like in Overwatch, I just didn't really have time. So it was yeah. So it's fun to go back to that kind of thing, and like I said, it fits in really nicely with the type of esport that you can have like a really fun discussion with your friends with while you watch it. And there are moments to get excited about, but it's really about conversation, right? It's really having a conversation. When I cast with Frodan, what we're doing is we're talking about what the mindset of the different players might be, as they're kind of approaching the game. You kind of in TFT, I think the important thing is and it's still very experimental, obviously, but I think it's fun to kind of like pick maybe as you watch the early game develop, pick like 4 players or so and like really pay the closest attention to those storylines. Because after like the early game, you can kind of tell the direction, the trajectory a lot of the players are going.
Mhm.
So you can see who are probably going to be the big players for the late game, and then to kind of start following them and sort of follow those stories and let those stories build. And if something else comes up, be ready to pivot to that. But that's kind of the general approach I'm trying to take with TFT right now, in the very limited amount I've casted it so far.
True. Only there haven't really been a ton of events so far, and we know obviously we talk about Phantom Legends. There was EFOS GG tournament that happened not last weekend but the weekend before, I believe. Giant Slayer is obviously doing their fight nights every couple of weeks, and really it kind of leads into another question that I had that came from an article that was written earlier this week about the state of where TFT is in the competitive scene, or where its competitive scene is in comparison to the greater esports picture. And I just want to kind of get your thoughts on, where, is obviously you have some confidence in TFT and you're having a lot of fun playing it, but is it at a place where it should be this early on? Does it have the promise to be something that we're going to be seeing in years at a competitive level, regardless of, people can play the game forever, but at a sort of a competitive level, where do you?
Yeah, I think it's really cool that Riot is using different champion skins to influence the different sets and stuff like that, because then, like you said, there really is an endless amount of possibilities. There's years and years and years of TFT content. When you look at the amount of champions in the game, the amount of skins, the fact that there's going to be new champions and new skins coming out as the game, kind of goes on. So I think like Mort said, that things have really exceeded their expectations, and I feel like it's exceeded everybody's expectations, right? It's very popular right now, and I think I would really like to see a high tier production get behind it. It's a bit of a gamble right now because it isn't as big as a lot of the other games out there, but I think there's a lot that can be done with it. I think there's a lot of really cool statistical things you could do with TFT that now that there's API access, some of these websites are doing, and some of that can be incorporated into the broadcast. If I get a chance to do TFT with Phantom again, I'm really going to push them to include some of that in the broadcast. I know they want to, but I think that'd be a really neat angle to go at it, is sort of like look at average gold at round X, and compare the players on that, sort of litmus.
Amount of his gold spent at this point in time.
Right.
Oh, that
Yeah.
actually is a really cool.
So look at average life total round X, and you can kind of really get a lot of players' play style if you look at their statistics as far as gold spend, rolling down, what champions they decide to go to. If this guy picks Azir, he has 20% higher chance to win a game than if he doesn't, and all that kind of stuff. So you get to see what people are kind of generally better at. So that data is, I believe, attainable now. I think you can get it from the API, but it would be really, but I'm like dumb at that kind of stuff, but I really need to see somebody else get that so that I can look at it and then talk about it.
Yeah, same.
What did Bill Gates say? If you want a job, so when he gives jobs away, at first he gives it to a lazy person because lazy people are really good at cutting corners, and then so he gives it to a lazy person first, and then gives it to somebody else
That makes sense.
to use. Yeah, so I'm not calling you lazy, Doa, but I'm just saying there's a little bit of that strategy involved.
When it comes to stats, I don't want to go find the stats. I'm
Right.
not finding the stats. I want to think about the stats.
Yeah, you know what stats you want someone else to find.
Right.
I can help digest and make them applicable.
Yeah, no, and I think what's really cool when it comes to this game is because those stats are like hardcore, right? Like you can look at it
Yeah.
and the stats tell that story, right? Because I think some things like in traditional sports too, you see a stat and you're like, well, none of this really matters.
Right.
Like how
Yeah.
many yards this guy ran because his team is losing, by 20 points or something like that, right?
Well, it has to be
Um,
applicable, right? Yeah, and it has
yeah,
to
Right.
be like communicated in an understandable way. That's kind of like the job of the commentator, is to take these like elements that are maybe too complex for a lot of the viewers,
Hmm.
and then make them understandable and digestible.
Yeah, for sure. And as we move on into the future of TFT, what are you like most excited about? Like to see, is there anything that like you want to see? My dream for set three is to have a champion that takes up two spaces. I think it'd be cool to have like Zai and Rakan on two spaces. I don't know. That's just something I
Huh.
would love to see them try.
That would be interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know.
What is there anything out there for you that you kind of want to see? Like a favorite champion, or maybe like an origin that you think might be cool?
I mean, it'd be cool to see more of the support champions I like come in, like to have Bard in there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm just always excited whenever there's new sets and new synergies and new origins and stuff like that, because it's the experimentation phase of a set is the most fun part to me.
Hmm.
Um, so I just like new sets. That said, I think set two is really really good, and so when they announced that set three is coming in March already, I'm like, oh, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like the sets probably should roll over like 3 times a year, 2 or 3
Hmm.
times a year,
Yeah, 3 or 4 months. Yep.
But I feel like I'm still getting the hang of set two. There's
Yes.
still so much to explore. So I'm like, oh, and I almost feel that way about set one to a certain extent. If
Hmm.
Hextech didn't exist, I would have been happy to play set one for a while longer. But like,
Yeah.
but set two is really good. So it's kind of sad to know that we've only got like what, a month and a half, 2 months, 2.5 months left with it, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's
But
always
mobile,
exciting.
it'll be out on mobile for set three though,
Yeah,
so that's exciting.
yeah, that's the end of my phone battery.
Yeah.
I know, right? Seriously.
I will. I'm seriously between that Legends of Runeterra and Wild Rift. I am probably getting a new phone and or a tablet.
I haven't tried Legends of Runeterra yet. I didn't get in the beta.
Well, good
Rito, I
news.
applied.
Good news is on January 24th, you will be able to play regardless of whether you got into the beta, because open beta
I
is
just
coming.
may do that. I'll give it a shot.
And you should definitely check out Rune Terrible Radio as well. They're great. They're a great podcast hosted by great people.
You're on it. It's very
Uh,
interesting. You have such a high
who
opinion on
me?
it.
But I'm saving all of that talk because I need to do the show tomorrow. But
That's a good idea.
you actually bring up one of my perhaps for extremely biased reasons, I'm very bullish on TFT. And even besides the fact that I have a podcast, I've just loved the game and have been very into it and have liked it, and it's been a joy to play. One thing that has been a concern for me, not from my personal take, but from people who I've talked to, both in the Legends podcast community and people who I know in real life who have just played TFT sort of casually, is actually that set rotation, where I've had multiple people, like between 3 to 5 people who've messaged me and are like, "Hey, I liked TFT set 1, but man, they sure did get rid of it and put in a brand new set, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore." And like,
Yeah.
I get, like, for me, I obviously am playing the game all the time. I'm watching way more hours of streams than I should be. My job would probably fire me if they found out how much I was watching. And I'm in the game as much as anyone could be, really, besides like streamers and whatnot. But some people aren't. They can't do that, and they don't want to do that. You don't want to have to do that. I mean, this is something I've heard from even going back to Magic the Gathering, where it's like, what do you mean I can't use my cards anymore? What do you mean all this time I spent on set 1 is gone? I just want to kind of get your thought on that, and you even kind of felt that a little bit of like, oh well, set 2 is going away, that kind of stinks. Is that something you see as sort of a problem or maybe an issue for TFT moving forward as we see these sets rotate?
Yes and no. I mean, that's as far as card games go. With set set rotation in Magic or something like that. Like, it's just part of the game. That's just it's a necessary thing for the competitive side of the game. So if you don't like that, well, I guess it's not for you. And TFT, I mean, it is free. you can play the entire thing for free.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really levy any complaints against it as
Right.
far as like what they decide to do with it, because it is free. But as far as like wanting it to succeed, I think I think it would be. I would like to see personally a minimum of 4 months for a set, and then you'll have 3 sets per year. It'll be a bigger deal when the sets change, and there'll be able to be more of a lead up to it, where someone who's into the game, even casually, will be able to read about like the new champions and read about the new synergies and stuff like that, and kind of get prepared a little bit. And I think 4 months still keeps it fresh enough for most people. And who knows, that might be what the plan is already, because we've had set 2 for about a month. It came out in like November, December, something like that.
Yeah, late December, because there's
Yeah.
that 3-week period where there was no rank.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it seems like it'll be about 4 months for the set anyway. So they could already be planning that. I haven't talked to anyone at Riot about it, but I would kind of like to see that sort of schedule be used with TFT. And it's not going to be for everybody, but I think a lot more people are going to get bored with the game being the same champions for a really long time, than people will leave because it's changing too often. I don't think every 4 months is too often,
Yeah.
so I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, when the game first came out, we were changing every week. Is what
Oh
it
yeah,
felt
the
like,
B
remember?
patches. I mean, it was great for doing a podcast, but man, it wasn't a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Demons went through 3 different iterations. So, like, what don't you want to see? So, you want to see these, the 4 months in terms of the sets. What's something that you don't like in your expertise of gaming and esports and just this world? What don't you want to see them do? What would be maybe a detriment for the future?
I would. It's hard to strike that balance between balancing when things need to be altered and leaving meta sit to let the players figure it out more. That's a perpetual sort of challenge with esports, is knowing when to balance and when to kind of hold back. So I feel like the balance changes have been coming pretty quickly in TFT, which on the one hand, I like that they're so aggressive. I think it is better to err on the side of being more aggressive in balancing a game than not balancing a game enough. But I think they're right on the edge, where if they do it a little bit more often, I think that's too much. But so I think they're doing good, but they're pushing it just a little bit with the speed of the balance changes. And then maybe it'd be cool to let the game breathe a little bit more. Not a ton, but like maybe a tiny bit more.
Yeah, let's try to
That's tough.
not like keep the pace, right? Like, let's not be the pacemaker here, right? Where we're running 6.5-minute miles for 10 miles. It's okay to run like a 7-minute mile sometime, right?
The other thing to think about too is that like they have a lot of statistics that we don't have,
right?
So they can see things happening in the game on a macro scale, on a big scale, that like we don't get to see because we don't see the data that they see every day. So things that we perceive to be a problem, especially on the competitive side of things, may not be a problem for like 90% of TFT players. And so, if something doesn't get changed, sometimes there's a good reason for it that you might not see. Just, speaking from what I know from other games that, many other games that have gone through lots of balance changes, and some people are, the people that don't have that inside look like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. But you're like, well, it does actually. It's just kind of hard to see it from this side. There's a good reason for it. So.
So I was talking with a friend, Deathblow, actually, who is podcast host for High Noon Podcast and is also TFT caster. And he brought up actually a really interesting idea for how to do the sets. And it's more like how blocks used to be in Magic the Gathering, and how they still kind of are a little bit, where instead of having set 1, then hard chop, paper cutter, that's gone. Set 2 is minted, and we add a little bit of set 2, and then chop that, set 3. You do like set 0.75, and then as set 1, and then set 2 is like the last 0.25 of set 1, and then also a little bit of set 2.
Like Hearthstone.
Like Hearthstone with the sets, where like you have set 1 and set 2 played at the same time, and then you have a transition. When set 3 comes out, set 1 goes away, and then you've got set 2 and set 3.
I think it's a great idea. I think that's I hadn't thought of that before, but now that I hear it, I think
I'm surprised I didn't
probably-
think of it either, because
that's
it's
probably absolutely the right way to do it, because
Yeah.
you get to not only keep the synergies that people like, but you get to add new stuff in, and you get to rotate out maybe a couple synergies that weren't really working, but you don't have to throw the entire thing out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. I think that's a great idea.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this isn't working. We could just toss it, right? Because
I mean,
we're doing this, right?
you'd have to sort of change the fundamental way they release sets to do
Yes.
that, because right now each set has well, out of the 2 sets that we've
Right.
seen and the tease of the 3rd set that's coming out,
Mhm.
they have very distinct themes to them.
Mhm.
So that would need to be changed in order for them to do that idea. But I love it. That's a great idea, where you
Yeah.
have, like, maybe 8 heroes or 8 champions. It's gonna be hard to switch back. 8
I know.
champions fall out and 8 new ones come in, and
Mhm.
like 2 new synergies come in, and
Yep.
2 ones go out, or like 4 and 4, whatever. But you get the idea. It'd be cool. I love that idea. That's really neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they like swap out origins instead of like whole sets. It'd, like be
Right.
like, okay, kind of like how they like added Hex Tech and
Mhm.
what did they add? Didn't they add another one?
Hex Tech.
In set 1, like after Hex
and-
Tech. I don't.
Did they add
I guess-
another
Anyway, I might have been
Yeah.
I might be making it up in my head, but but yeah, I think it allows them to be a little bit more flexible. Something that I'm sure they've thought about, but I think could definitely revisit, because
Well, so
one
here's
thing that I don't like is like I miss Cho'Gath. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I love
was
that
fun.
hero, and the fantasy of him is just like super cool, right? You get attached to some of these characters, and then they're just gone, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't feel as good.
So here's a counterpoint to that I thought of just now, is that when you remove all of like, say we removed Inferno and I don't know what's an origin,
Ocean?
Woodland,
Okay.
Ocean, sure. Like remove, like, you remove 2 of those things. That has a big effect on a lot of the other synergies, because
Mhm.
suddenly certain ones that made a synergy work are going to be gone. So
Yep.
it would be difficult to remove just like 2 or 3 or 4 of those, because of the big
That's
effect
true.
that it has on the other champion pools that maybe share that synergy but are part of another origin or something
Mhm.
like that. So I think it's a neat idea, but I think it would get really complicated really fast too.
Well,
So
it would.
that's sort of like a
What it would certainly do is impact, like you said, how they do sets, because not even touching the fact that, well, would we have 2 Lucians in right now, or do we have to push light Lucian into set 3? Something like, they'd have to change that. But, I mean, they could do that. That's not like a huge thing. They could just make someone else that unit, right?
Yeah, or they could just, like, change a champion and keep the origin, but change the what is the second one called? Origin and what?
Origin and class.
Class. Change the class but keep the origin. You could do something like that.
Yeah, I mean they can do that, but the other thing is you need to it adds a ton of complexity, because you're not
Right.
just balancing for the set itself, you're balancing for the next set, and you're also balancing for the previous set, right? Like you're balancing set 3 and how it works with set 2 and with set 4 if you're doing it in that order. Or if you're doing it in that
I think at the end of the day, it's a cool idea, but it might just be too much work.
It's a lot of work.
So I would love to see them try it, but
Yeah.
It definitely would get very complex quickly.
Yeah, and considering I'm sure the testing size for Magic the Gathering is much bigger than the side project that exploded for Riot in terms of
Yeah.
people. So
It's like one of those ideas that like you hear it, you're like, yeah, cool. Then you like sit with it for a second. You're like, but wait, there's more.
well, it's like
But
Yeah,
wait,
that's a Reddit thread in a nutshell, right? Where someone has
Yeah.
an idea, and they're
Right.
like, oh, this is
no, you're an idiot. Anyway,
no one stops to really think about it,
yeah.
yeah, totally.
I do think it's a good idea. It's just the implementation of it is definitely something that is needs to be actually
very
thought out.
challenging.
Yeah, very challenging. Okay. Let's move on. Let's shift focus here and talk about some of the new stuff. We've already kind of teased it a little bit. We had the TFT 2020 video come out a couple of days ago. We got the confirmation that set 3 is coming in mid-March. There's a Star Guardian Space Odyssey theme. I'm sure that you guys, as bigger League fans than I am, caught more references than I did. But for me, as someone who came in as just a TFT guy, basically, I thought it was cool. Space, different stuff, crazy. It's like, it's wackier, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, here's the League champions and this is their they're just doing a thing, and like, oh well,
These
we changed
champions are
one.
red, and these champions
Right,
are
and like we
blue.
changed one champion so that they were a dragon kind of because we needed that synergy. It's like, nope, we are doing it top down. These are going to be space units. I thought that was
It's
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just like this one had that really strong elemental theme,
Mhm.
right down to the hexes on the board being different each game, which I have mixed feelings about. But it is cool that it's different. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see what they do with the next set.
So
Mhm.
Moore actually mentioned that that they're gonna try something like Elemental Hexes was just for that set, right?
Yeah.
And that this particular one is actually a little out there. So like the theory
Yeah.
crafting
Alright.
like is like already in my head, like as to what it might be. So like hearing that information, do you have any maybe assumptions on what these new hexes might be? Because
Who knows?
yeah, I know, right? But like it's space themed or something like that. I
Do you
don't
want to hear
know.
my
I
do
don't
you want to
know,
hear my
man.
tinfoil hat thing?
Yeah, what's your
Go for
tinfoil
it.
hat?
Okay. We're no longer going to be on little islands. Like, the little islands with the boards on them. We're going to be on a sphere, and the board is going to be all around the sphere, and you turn it around and spin it because it's like a
That'd be
terrible
terrible.
plant.
There was a
That would be
Tetris game
that would be
was
so
awful.
hard to watch. That would not, yeah. No, thank you.
I didn't say it was a good idea. I just
You had an idea, and that's what matters.
I'll keep it to myself next time. We also got set 3 mid-March, the space theme mobile coming after that. They didn't give it a firm date, but we're thinking sometime around that mid-March area.
Mid-March.
We had the Mort kind of offhandedly say before May was, which is cute.
April's basically March.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really cool, and we've talked extensively about the implications of mobile and whatnot for that. So before we'll close out the show by talking about the PBE balances, but that announcement itself, mobile, set 3, Star Guardian theme. How do you feel about that? It wasn't quite like it was a 3-minute video with Mort and one of the other leads. Pretty straightforward. Runeterra the day before got like a big thing. Obviously it's a brand new game, but how did you feel coming out of that video, Doa?
I mean, it's kind of like I mentioned. I'll be excited to see what they do. I mean, they didn't really give a whole lot of information other than it'll be in space. Kind of, there'll be space things. So yeah, I'm just kind of waiting to see, what it is. You can't really focus on it too much while the current set is still, around. But it'll be neat. I neat thing. Like I said, my favorite part of any game like this, whether it's card game or auto battler, is experimenting with the new stuff when it comes out. So looking forward to it.
Boop, what did you
What
think?
if random asteroids hit the board?
Stop.
No,
Stop.
the one thing I'm not looking forward to is Zoe is from space, and I think she's one of the most annoying champions in the game, but it'll be funny. A lot of people love her.
Ooh, that's another champion that I will learn about for the first time in TFT.
Aurelian Soul's probably going to come back.
Yeah, Aurelian Soul.
Bard, there's a good reason for Bard to be in there.
The Pulsefire skin line.
The project stuff.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. And the cool thing about some of these skin lines, like Odyssey, it has some people from set 1 and set 2. Like Odyssey has Yasuo, Jinx, and Malphite in it. So like
Project has Yasuo as well.
Yeah, and so like that all like kind of comes together. We get to come back to some of our familiar friends from set 1, because I think some of us are missing some of those champions from set 1.
Gangplank, give me Gangplank.
Yeah, there's Pulsefire, there's Shyvana, Ezreal can be there, and the Star Guardian line is, I think, their highest ever skin selling line they've ever had. And there's Nico and Lux and
who are the champions that have been in both so far? It's like Yasuo, Ezreal,
Vayne.
No, Ezreal wasn't in set 1.
Vayne.
No, Varus.
Varus was, yep. Volibear was. Let's see.
Not that many.
What's his name? Lucian.
Which is good.
Lucian. Warwick was too. Kha'Zix, Zed.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're all doing different things.
They were doing different things, but they were
which is good. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, because like that's the other thing. Like if if Zoe's in the game, right? Like, are we gonna get Sleepy Trouble Bubble, or are we gonna get, like her hopping around and auto attacking? Like, that's the coolest thing about TFT is like also taking these champions that would never build a Rage Blade in League of
Mhm.
Legends, but then all of a sudden in TFT, attack
Right.
speed to get to those ultimates is there. It's just really cool to see these champions used this way.
Yeah.
That's why there's
as
really
well.
like an infinite amount of things they could do in
Yep.
this game because all the champions have 3 or 4 different abilities too. So
Mhm.
Yep.
there's just an endless amount of stuff they could put in this game. So either way, I hope we've got a lot of years of it ahead
Yeah.
of us.
I
Yep.
love the game so much. But
The
let's talk about PBE real quick.
Well, I want to make one. Let's do this. Let's just real quick. We'll do one crazy call, like either a
Sure.
champion that's coming in set 3 or a skin in the champion combination. I've got mine. It's Toy Renekton is going to be in
Toy
set 3.
Renekton?
Oh,
Yep.
the toy skins.
That'd
Okay.
be sick. Isn't there like one of the like? I feel like there is like a Mecha Renekton or Project Renekton. Maybe they'll do like the Mecha stuff too.
Yeah,
Be
they
neat.
could.
Oh, they did just release the mecha skin line
I
with
think it's
Set.
tomorrow.
My prediction though is going to be Bard. Bard will
Mm.
be in there, and you would expect him to have his ultimate because it kind of like essentially stops time for a little while.
Mhm.
Which would be a thing that they've kind of played around with like Kindred's ultimate and stuff. Like things that keep
Yeah.
people from dying, basically.
Yeah.
He could be that guy in set 3, but I think it would be cooler if he would like hop over and then grab the person with the lowest health and magical journey them to a different part of the map to save. Although that might be
That would
annoying
be
because
cool.
if it's like you're about to kill someone, then Bard takes you away.
Well, I
Who
think
knows?
Bard has some of the coolest like fantasy in the game, right? Like the sounds that he makes, like when you're playing Bard, you're having
Yeah.
fun. Even if you're feeding,
He's
like
neat.
if you're 0 and 10, you're having a good time still when
Bard
you're
is
playing
cool.
that character.
What's
I don't know.
your call, Boob?
I think it would have to be something environmental because when I think of space, you think of like asteroids hitting or maybe
Spaceships.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. So maybe the board will change. Like there's been rumors that they're cutting down that row again.
Oh.
I wouldn't
So
be opposed to that.
like
No,
if they're
I
gonna
wouldn't be
mess
either.
with board size again is the other thing because space feels so big. It would be weird if they went smaller, right? So
Right.
I don't know, but I'm gonna say it every single time. I want the beard origin. Give me some Olaf.
Yes,
Give me some Gangplank. Give me some
Gragas.
Green
Yes.
roll off.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And
I
so
unlocked Broloff yesterday, by the way.
and like it would be like something like +10 to like armor or health, or it would be like brawlers or something like that.
They should have just called Brawlers beards. That's because like Warwick is pretty much and Volibear both. Their full body is beard.
If he's covered with hair, then part of that hair would be a beard.
I just say the whole thing is a beard. Their full body is beard.
It all originates from the face area.
Yes, it sure does. Okay, and if they come true, then everyone has to follow us on Twitter. All 3 of us, by the way. We all count for all 3 of us. So if any of those come true, you have to follow all 3 of us. But we got this. Okay, yes, we did get, and we'll end here. We got some PBE changes that came in. We got some changes to some origins, some classes, and we got some
pretty crazy stuff actually.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff. I don't see the woodland thing on here.
6
but I know
Warden.
what it is.
Now gain 999.
Yes, Warden 6 Warden armor increase went from.
It's really easy to get 6 Wardens.
Yeah, went from 450 just up to 9999. Or no, sorry, just 999, not 9999.
You just won't be taking damage from auto attacks. So yeah. That's so
it's above to Ocean Mage, your beloved Ocean Mage technically.
And they're doing this and they're simultaneously nerfing Desert. Which is interesting.
Nerfing 2 Desert, but not 4 Desert. 4 Desert's actually going up.
That's true. That is true. And 6 Mage is getting a buff. I've got it all.
+30 spell power is pretty substantial.
Yeah, it is. I'm a little bit surprised that they're nerfing summoners again. I didn't think summoners felt oppressively strong yet. And I'm kind of surprised that they're nerfing summoners and they're also nerfing Yorick by a good amount actually.
Yeah.
I would have thought maybe they would just tune down Yorick and maybe even Zed again a little bit, but Zed doesn't need it as much, but I'm surprised they're nerfing the entire thing, because you look at a champion like Zyra, and she's just not ran very much anymore. It seems like she's her priority has dropped a lot.
Yep, she's the Morello carrier now, or the Summoner enabler, or the Inferno enabler, but not.
Yeah, and you'd rather have Malzahar in a lot of situations too, in that, unless you like need Infernal and she's the only option or something like that. Inferno rather. So I'm a little bit surprised. The 6 Woodland sounds hilarious. Are there even 6 Woodland champs in the game?
No, there's the 4 Woodland, the 4 regular Woodland, and then you would need a Woodland Lux, which gives you the 5th and 6th Woodland trait.
That's true.
Oh,
And-
I always forget about Lux there at the end,
Yeah.
right? Like that she counts
The
as
meme
2.
becomes the dream.
Yeah, I don't
real.
think it's on this list, but the 6 Woodland change now just makes it so that all of the Woodlands spawn an additional copy. So you'll get, I guess, technically only 5. Well, actually, you could have more if you had 2 Nikos in. Like, you had all 4. If you had 6 Woodland and then you just kept putting extra ones in, I'm assuming that they'll all spawn.
That sounds
an extra
awesome.
one.
That sounds awesome, but like Woodland already kind of falls off pretty hard into like the mid and late game. So sticking with that long enough and then hoping you roll Lux,
Woodland Lux.
like it's a lot. It's a big ask. We'll put it that way. But it's one of those things where it's like, that's content.
Exactly. This guy's
Quality
will
content
be making a video about it.
Yes.
There's no doubt. Because like sometimes you kind of like see yourself, right? You're like there. You're like, wait a second. All I need is the Woodland Lux. I'm already at level, I'm already at level 7. It could just
I need is to roll a Lux and then
that
have her roll that origin.
I actually, I don't want to. I might get in trouble for revealing this, but I know how to guarantee that you get a Woodland Lux. Do you guys want to know? You need to just think in your mind that you need a electric or an Inferno or a Shadow Lux, and nothing but Woodland Lux will pop up. Let me guarantee you that, because if you're looking for a different kind of Lux, you will guaranteed see that Woodland Lux.
It's like, oh great, Steel Lux, thanks.
Well, the Steel Lux at least will proc itself. It at least gives you the full Steel 2, and like it's good to protect her a little bit. But
Lux. But not,
she's okay.
Not really. I mean, everyone, we're all looking for that Crystal Lux. That's what we're looking for.
There's only a couple Luxes that are good on the Cloud Lux Ocean Lux is fine. Cloud Lux is fine. Anything that gives your entire buff.
Shadow Lux
is okay. Shadow Lux she doesn't really even give your team a buff by herself though.
But the shadow buff helps her really well in general.
So you need 3 shadows though, don't you?
Yeah. So you need one other.
She wouldn't do it solo. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You need
but like stuff like extra dodge, giving your whole team 20%.
Yeah.
Or giving your team a little bit more mana. That's fine.
That's the bee's knees. I don't know if you guys noticed here, but a couple mages getting buffed as well. Renekton also getting a huge buff.
Wait.
No. Viger getting a buff.
I was gonna say Renekton's getting nerfed.
4/7 1000. Renekton getting nerfed. 325 450, 150 270 475. I think that's like the 5th. I think Renekton's gotten nerfed for 3 or 4 patches in a row.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised about this Renekton nerf, because like before it was like, okay, he was egg roll. He was like very clearly the number one cost unit. He enables everything. Like he hit everything, and now it was it was good.
You want to go for that 6 Woodland? Well, here's how. 3-star Renekton is back, baby. So he's, you can go for the egg roll again, and try to like load up Renekton, and then pray for the Woodland Lux at the end, I guess. So there it is. It's a 3-star Renekton has gotten buffed a little bit. So
it did.
I get scared anytime Viger gets buffed, just in general.
I will make a prediction.
Okay, let's hear it.
The Ezreal buff is actually possibly the most insane thing on the PBE right now, because there's a comp out there right now that not a lot that involves going for a 3-star Ezreal with like 4 glacial, 6 glacial obviously is better, but 4 glacial is perfectly fine, where you give him like a Seraphs and like a little bit of damage, like AP damage. You give him like a cap or something like that, and he just casts every other attack. And so every other attack he's hitting the lowest health person for like 900 damage, 800 damage, whatever it is. So, which is insane. If you can pull it off, it is really, really hard to beat.
You're right, because you get 2 casts on this, and it's an extra 100 damage at level 2.
Ezreal can really, really carry if you get the right items. right glacial comp. So I'm a little bit surprised they're buffing Ezreal, because I think he might just be like the new carry of choice, and glacial's just going to come back in a big way. So I'm really curious to see how that one's going to go. I'm going to be watching that one. I'm definitely going to be playing my Ezreal comp, which I love playing because I've always enjoyed glacial just because I like being annoying, I guess. But I think Ezreal could be really good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
he definitely, and he's one of those ones that, like, okay, you can run him in like a full glacial comp. You can run him to complement your berserkers, like
Rangers.
Yeah, you run him in Rangers. There's a lot of stuff that Ezreal can go in, and yeah, I think he's like slowly, like he's the one that, like, he's kind of like Gnar from set 1 in that he's getting like little buffs like every couple of patches, and like they add up, and then when people start playing him, all of a sudden he's going to be played nonstop, and you're never going to be able to get him. And maybe we're part of the problem.
You get a spatula, make somebody else glacial pretty easy, and then you can do some kind of fun shenanigans with that, where you go like Warden Glacial Ranger, and you throw in some wardens that shouldn't be glacial but they become glacial, or some glacial that shouldn't be wardens but they become warden, and then you have Ezreal in the back just doing tons of damage.
That's the best part about TFT is that spatula, man. Because coming from Underlords, like the items, yeah, I know. Just to be able to like change the look, like going back to set 1, making all your Yordles extra small by putting the mittens on them, and then here like making someone. It's just really funny to see certain characters jump as a berserker, right? When they normally wouldn't, and that's the kind of stuff that I really appreciate about TFT, and I'm excited about these changes too, because I think Ezreal is a cool character in general, and to get that kind of DPS, like 50 each time that Mystic Shot goes out. The Mystic Shot's not like an ultimate that takes a long time, right? You're gonna feel that extra damage.
That's AP too, so it builds off of the other AP items you give him as well. So he's like low key one of the highest damage champions in the game right now. And I think this buff could like tip him over the edge as being like making a new comp meta revolving around him being your carry.
He's in that interesting spot that Lucian is in right now, or is in the spotlight in, where you can put pretty much any sort of offensive item on him and it's gonna be good, because he scales off of AP and AD. So it's
I think Ezreal will be better because he's more reliably findable.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's the thing with if you go for the Senna comp, you're like
you're competing with the whole lobby.
Yeah. So which it's like, whereas Ezreal, like Ezreal's everywhere. He's 3 stars, right? So he's he'll or 3. He's level 3, so he'll be around a lot.
Cool. Well, Blev, I've got one more question for Doa. I think you know what it is.
Oh, I sure do know what it is.
There's a meme that we do. There's a meme that we do here on the Little Legends podcast. It happened over Thanksgiving. It is a weird question, but we ask everyone as they come on. So Doa, in your opinion, which Little Legend tastes the best?
Oh man, hold on. Let me bring up a chart of all the Little Legends I have to do.
Yeah, we end every show with a guest with this question.
Yeah.
So just to kind of like preface it, there's been some things that have been said. And some like
let's see,
underdog. So the Fury Horn and the Silver Wing are definitely S tier, but there's been some
the
really good
Fua.
arguments
For
the Paddlemar and the Fua and the even the River Sprite if you're a Hydra homie.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can drink a River Sprite.
I think. Well, so here's the thing. I think for me, it'd be a tie between the Paddlemar and like the little pig one, because I love pork and I love seafood, and I've never eaten turtle. I've never eaten sea turtle specifically, but I bet it tastes good.
All right, there it is.
So I think one of those two.
I think,
and I've traveled the world. I've eaten a lot of interesting things, and then I'm always down for trying something new. So bring on the Paddlemar.
Yeah, I just want there to be some sort of like riot, like BlizzCon-esque riot event, and I want there to be a cafe where they serve Little Legends like theme. That is my dream. If that is the contribution that we make, it's a silver wing leg. If that is the contribution we make to the riot community, that will be a win in my book.
Aim high.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. I'll be there.
Yes, that'll be great. But that is going to bring us to the end of the show. Doa, thank you so much for being on and providing your insights. I know we glossed over the interview part, but I'm sure there's places people can find you.
It's more fun to talk about TFT. Everybody knows where I by now. They should. If they don't, well, welcome.
There's
to
stuff. Just Google Doa and it'll be
Google.
on there.
Yeah, Google.
I'm everywhere.
Doa, any the esports consultant himself. Any sellout, shout outs, anything that you want to do before we jump off?
Well, you can go to alt clothing. I think that's what's the website? Alt
esports. Oh. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. If I can find it first.
Hold on. What I'm trying to say is, go buy my shirt.
Yes, go to altesports.com and look for
That's
the
what
esports consultant shirt.
I'm sorry, Nate. Nate Ekman over there designs all the awesome shirts for all esports.
Nate, if you want to make a
I'm sorry,
Little
Nate.
Legends podcast shirt, we can talk about a partnership.
the
Now that
website,
I knew the website. I knew the website.
But anyway, go there, buy the shirt. Also, go to my social media, Doa on Twitch, Doa on Twitter. Follow that. DOA Games on Instagram. I post a lot of miniature painting on Instagram. You can see cool stuff like this guy, the Skull Taker.
The Skull Taker.
Come on, focus.
Oh, wait, hold on, I can get
Focus.
the Skull Taker. There we go.
Oh my
Great.
god.
Love skulls.
Oh, that cape is sick, Doa.
That is
It's
sick.
not focusing though. How do I get?
Oh, but I can imagine it. Oh, that is sick. You had to paint.
Oh, there we go.
you
I'm
have to
sorry.
paint each
I'm
one of
sorry,
those
podcast
individually?
listeners, but it is a sweet cape that has skulls on.
Check
You're
it
gonna
out.
have to check out the
I
YouTube
did like
video.
a lava. I did the.
Are these all just Warhammer?
Yeah, it's a Warhammer figure.
Yeah.
Sick.
Oh man.
Anyway,
I've
tons of
gotta-
fun. So go to my Instagram and you can see a lot more of that type of awesome stuff. But follow all my social media
Yes.
and buy my shirts so I can eat. I'm freelance now.
living that freelance life.
Living
But
freelance life.
yes, make sure you guys do that. I'll have all those links in the description below, so make sure you check those out. But that's gonna be it for us. You can find us at LIL Legends Pod on Twitter, discord.me/Little Legends Podcast, iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff, Little Legends Podcast. Make sure you are following us there for all the updates on the community, the stuff that we're doing, and game nights. Don't forget about game nights, all that good stuff. But that is going to be it. Again, thank you, Doa, for coming on. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you more in the TFT community. That's going to be it, guys. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.